Today we're diving into the thrilling opening scenes of Venom. The movie kicks off with a bang as a shuttle from the Life Foundation crash lands in East Malaysia. Medics rush to the scene and find one survivor astronaut, but things take a dark turn in the ambulance when something sinister that's latched onto Jameson comes alive. The alien entity, known as the symbiotic, attacks everyone inside, causing the vehicle to flip and crash. Emerging from the wreckage, we see an EMT, now possessed by this otherworldly force. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, we're introduced to our main man, Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy. Eddie is a gutsy reporter living with his fiancée, Anne Wang, portrayed by Michelle Williams. Anne is a lawyer about to represent the Life Foundation and its enigmatic CEO, Carlton Drake, played by Riz Ahmed. Eddie's known for his hard-hitting show, The Eddie Brock Report, where he uncovers the truth no matter the cost. Things heat up when Eddie's boss sends him to interview Drake but warns him to avoid any controversial questions. Anne echoes this sentiment, knowing Eddie's fiery temper all too well, which already got him booted out of New York. But Eddie can't help himself. He finds an email on Anne's computer revealing 3 confirmed deaths linked to the shuttle crash. Ignoring all warnings, Eddie grills Drake about the fatalities and his responsibility for them during the interview. Drake, obviously not pleased, abruptly ends the session. The fallout is immediate. Eddie gets fired, and unfortunately so does Anne. To make matters worse, Anne breaks up with Eddie, leaving him at rock bottom. Back in Malaysia, our possessed EMT roams into a bustling local market and starts munching on an eel raw. Naturally, the vendor isn't too happy about this, but things get deadly fast as the symbiote forms a blade around her arm and she brutally slits the vendor's throat. Chaos erupts as onlookers try to fight back, but the symbiote isn't done. It releases deadly quills, taking out everyone around her. The scene takes another dark twist as the EMT, now dead, transfers the symbiote to an unsuspecting elderly woman. Fast forward 6 months, and we see Carlton Drake pushing the boundaries of his research, using homeless people as test subjects for the symbiotes. He convinces one subject, Isaac, that he's part of some grand scientific breakthrough. Drake releases a symbiote into the room with Isaac, who seems fine at first, but then starts convulsing violently. The symbiote exits, leaving Isaac's lifeless body behind, having devoured his organs. Pretty gruesome, right? Back in San Francisco, Eddie Brock is in a rough spot, jobless and alone. He frequents a local shop where he's friendly with the clerk, Mrs. Chen. Unfortunately, Eddie has to watch helplessly as a thug continually robs her, unable to do anything about it. Enter Dr. Dora Skirth, played by Jenny Slate, a scientist from the Life Foundation who is horrified by Drake's human experiments. She approaches Eddie, seeking his help to expose Drake's sinister deeds. But Eddie, disillusioned and broken, refuses. He no longer cares about the fate of humanity. Eddie Brock, feeling lonely and desperate, decides to visit his ex-fiancée Anne, but things take a turn for the worse when he sees her returning from a date with her new boyfriend, Dr. Dan Lewis. Ouch. In a private moment, Eddie confesses to Anne that he misses her and blames Carlton Drake for his downfall. However, Anne bluntly tells him that his current situation is his own doing. Feeling lost, Eddie reaches out to Dr. Dora Skirth and agrees to join her mission to expose Drake. Skirth sneaks Eddie into the Life Foundation's headquarters, where he captures shocking photos of the gruesome experiments on the symbiote's victims. Among the captives, Eddie recognizes Maria, a homeless woman he knows. As he tries to free her, Maria attacks him, and the symbiote within her transfers to Eddie. Suddenly, he's running for his life, with newfound strength and agility helping him escape the pursuing security guards. Back at the Life Foundation, Drake discovers Maria's lifeless body and realizes a symbiote is on the loose. He forces Skirth to reveal Eddie's involvement, then cruelly locks her in a cell to be killed by another symbiote. Determined to retrieve his missing specimen, Drake sends a team of mercenaries led by Roland Trees to hunt Eddie down. Eddie, now experiencing bizarre symptoms, craves strange foods like frozen tater tots and rotten meat. He's also plagued by a fever and a mysterious growling voice in his head. Back at his apartment, Eddie's agony continues when his neighbor blasts loud music. Eddie confronts him. Just then, Roland Treese and his mercenaries storm Eddie's home to capture him. Eddie tries to surrender, but the symbiote has other plans. As the mercs attack Eddie with the symbiote's help, fights them off involuntarily. Treese records the fight to show Drake, who is thrilled to see that Eddie is a perfect match for the symbiote. Eddie manages to escape his apartment as more mercs arrive, leading to a thrilling chase through the city. He finds a motorcycle, and with the symbiote's assistance, he maneuvers effortlessly through the streets, taking out goons along the way. The chase culminates when Treese rams Eddie with his car. As Treese approaches, the symbiote fully envelops Eddie, transforming him into the fearsome Venom. Venom is about to kill Treese when another mercenary shoots at him, prompting Venom to bite the merc's head off before retreating. Eddie finds himself near a lighthouse where the symbiote miraculously heals his broken bones. The symbiote, now identified as Venom, speaks to Eddie, declaring him a great host. Eddie is horrified by Venom's violent actions, but Venom insists that compliance is the key to survival. Embracing his new identity, Venom climbs to the top of Eddie's former workplace to deliver evidence of Drake's crimes to his old boss. Eddie attempts to escape, only to be ambushed by mercenaries again. Venom fights them off fiercely before making a strategic retreat. After seeing Eddie's apartment turned into a crime scene, Anne tracks him down and brings him to Dan's office for help. She knows something's seriously wrong. Venom, who has taken a liking to Anne, encourages Eddie to talk to her. Eddie apologizes for his past mistakes, but Anne reminds him it's not the time for that. Dan runs another test and discovers that the symbiote is a parasite, which Venom does not appreciate being called. Dan explains that Eddie and the symbiote are draining each other's life force. In response, Eddie uses a high-frequency sound to force Venom off his body. Venom escapes through the vents and latches onto a small dog. Meanwhile, Treese and his men finally capture Eddie and bring him to Drake. Meanwhile, the elderly woman possessed by a symbiote finds a young girl at an airport to use as a new host. The girl travels to San Francisco, finds Drake, and the symbiote transfers to him. Drake interrogates Eddie, demanding to know the symbiote's whereabouts. The symbiote in Drake reveals itself as Riot. Eddie learns of Drake's sinister plan to return to space and bring back more symbiotes to use humans as hosts. Anne, determined to save Eddie, finds the dog hosting Venom and heads to the Life Foundation. Venom transfers to Anne, transforming her into She-Venom. Anne breaks Eddie free, biting off Treese's head in the process, a move that horrifies her. She then transfers Venom back to Eddie with a kiss. Eddie and Venom race against time to stop Drake and Riot from boarding the rocket. The showdown is intense as Eddie and Drake battle it out in their symbiote forms. Anne, playing a crucial role, turns on a frequency to disrupt both symbiotes, causing them to separate from their hosts. In a desperate attempt to reattach to Riot, Drake gets kicked off the ledge by Eddie, but in a dramatic turn, Eddie is impaled by Riot, who then boards the rocket as it starts to lift off. Venom, not giving up on Eddie, reattaches to him and heals his wound. Together, they leap onto the rocket, and Venom cuts the fuel line, causing a massive explosion that incinerates Drake and Riot. The flames seemingly consume Venom as Eddie falls into the water. Sometime later, we see Eddie and Anne Hand have mended their relationship as friends. Eddie mentions being asked to bring his show back with a focus on Drake, but he has other plans, including a mysterious meeting in prison. Unbeknownst to Anne, Venom is still very much alive inside Eddie. They stop by Mrs. Chen's shop, where the thug from earlier tries to rob her again. This time, Eddie morphs into Venom and devours the thug right in front of Mrs. Chen. Eddie asks Venom what they should do next, and Venom declares that they can do whatever they want. Mid-credits scene, Eddie visits San Quentin prison for an interview with his next big story, a serial killer named Cletus Kasady. Kasady ominously vows that once he gets out, there will be carnage. Post-credits scene, we get an extended sneak peek of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. In this clip, Miles Morales is being chased by the Prowler. After a thrilling escape, Miles visits the grave of Peter Parker. To his shock, a very much alive Peter Parker appears behind him, but Miles accidentally zaps him unconscious. Chaos ensues as Miles drags the unconscious Peter through New York, evading cops until they end up in the middle of a crowded street. And that's a wrap on Venom. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Until next time, stay awesome.